Well, thank you for joining us once again, everyone.
Yep.
We're doing another show today. It's going to be exciting. We're going to try to keep it on the time so we don't go too far over. Obviously, some of the things we've covered previously, but today we're going to be talking about an interesting development, which quite a few of you already would have known. And we also got across this, and we're looking at the release of GPT-3, which is an algorithm which just got released mid this year. Yeah.
Hmm.
What do you think?
Yep.
And what do you think of its development so far?
Oh, well, I think that it's quite an amazing piece of software that's been put together. And even though it falls squarely in the artificial intelligence arena, it still is very impressive. And so I'm looking forward to going over it with you and, talking about what it's capable of.
I'm looking forward to trying this out. We've subscribed
Yeah.
to some of the sources where you can get access to it, and I think it'll be great to play with this and see where we can take it. See if we can try out some of our ideas, which we've been working on. It'd be good to see if
Yep.
it can spar with us on those. Yeah, that'll be
Exactly.
amazing.
Exactly.
So maybe what we can do is that maybe we can just let's talk about what we've heard so far and what we've learned. Since it released in July, and maybe we'll start off with interesting quotes that have been. Basically, everyone comes out and they look at the technology, they read about it, they contact the
Yeah.
developers, and they ask them questions and do the interviews. And one of the interesting one that was mentioned by John, I'm going to stuff up his name obviously, Chalmers. He's an Australian professor.
Right.
He's a philosopher in cognitive science. Cognitive science, specializing in areas of philosophy, philosophy of the mind, physiology of language, philosophy of language. Sorry, he's actually professor of philosophy and neuroscience and the director of the Center of the Mind, Brain, and
Mm.
Consciousness at
Wow.
New York New University. That's you maybe know where that is, Ken.
Yeah. Yeah. I do.
I've heard of it, but it's in USA, I think. Uh, yeah, so that's pretty good. What he said is that it's one of the most interesting and important AI systems ever produced.
Yeah.
What do
Yeah.
you think? What do you think of that?
That's pretty good endorsement. So, and actually, I think he's right because unlike the like Deep Blue and the other systems that have been prior, this is a very generalized AI system. And what occurs to me is that it's still not artificial generalized intelligence or synthetic intelligence, as we've talked about um, in our previous shows. But in the AI field, it's very general and it knows how to do a lot of things. Okay, so unlike like the Go system that plays Go, that's all it can do is play Go. Whereas this can do a whole bunch of things. Like I believe you might have a list there of some of the things that it can do.
Oh yes, it's a quite an extensive list so far. Some of the things that it can do right now is writing code. We've obviously subscribed already to the.
So we're all going to be out of a job.
Yeah, well, that's what everybody's saying. I don't think so. Yeah,
Okay.
that's exactly what's been. And we would have to say to everyone, nobody's gonna be out of a job. That's I guarantee you. If
Yeah, I know. I'm
anything,
just kidding. I'm
oh,
just kidding.
everybody, look, you might hear that. There's a big. I suppose people are scared. You can see some videos saying, "Game over, everyone. We're doomed." We're not. Fundamentally, if anything, is going to make our life easier because we don't have to do all the medial stuff. Because I know me and Ken, I know you and I do a lot
Uh,
of stuff. Like it's just,
yeah.
40% of our time is spent on things we don't need to do. Like it'll be
No.
nice to have something, which I think we already have. We're getting there. Something that can actually take care of all this load. Some of this.
It's the equivalent. If you want an analogy, a lot of the things that we do is like the equivalent of vacuuming the floor and dusting the shelves. Okay, this is like This is like stuff that, you really wish you didn't have to do. There's more important things you can spend time doing. Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely going to make a lot of difference to a lot of people. I believe. Yeah, and it's going to be really helpful. One of the cool things it can do right now, it can generate text from images. That's pretty cool. You can tell it, can you draw me a nice looking man with no hair, and draws pictures of me.
So it can make images from text. So you can just describe what you want.
Yeah, yeah. You just say Max Perez, and it just shows my picture.
Yeah. Well, how does it know what you look like? It must go on to Google Images and and look up your picture.
Exactly. Yeah, but I mean, I don't know, but I'll have to, once we get access to it. I'm going to be keen to try this out to see what it can come up with. We've seen quite a cool examples of it completing text. You can basically give it a sentence.
So tell about that. That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah. I think it's quite interesting. You can give it a piece of text, and you can say complete a sentence, and you would actually write a few words, and you'll say just ... and it will actually add you some words in there, right? Obviously, there's some quirks with it, but nonetheless.
So as I understand the way that works is like, for example, if you were to say, the man went in the house and took off his, and then you had an underline there where it needed to finish the sentence, it would come up with probably shoes, okay?
Yep.
And the way that it does this is that it looks at what it has been taught over. Actually, they're claiming that it's been taught like all knowledge known to man
Yes.
on the earth, right? So and it costs millions and millions of dollars to train this thing, and it actually exists in a very large computer system. And so
Yes.
and so it comes back and says shoes, and the way that it does it is it looks at all of the probabilities of which words will fit in that slot, and it'll see that shoes is the most likely one. It could say other things like coat, you can take off your coat, but in this case, take off the shoes is probably the most likely one, because people are very prone to take off their shoes when they go into a house. So assuming it was taught that. So this brings up an interesting point, and that is that it doesn't really understand what it's doing. It just knows how to do it. Okay. And it knows how to do it based on statistics, based on the statistical model. So it's just a very large advanced neural network that's been trained with a massive amount of generalized information and data.
Yeah, and I think I can only fantasize of all the sources it would have used. I mean, I can't think of anything better for it to use Wikipedia. Obviously, it would have gotten Wikipedia.
So you think it went through all of Wikipedia?
Oh, that's I would think so, right? Like, I mean, that'll be so. Yeah. If they said I don't know if it would have gone through the whole of the internet. I mean, that's a big ask for it, but it might.
Google does that every few weeks. It goes through the whole internet, so maybe
that. Yeah, I mean, we know that it can write code. We've seen that. I can have examples of it, and obviously, and we'll get to try that on the deepbuild.co. There's a website, you guys go to it, deepbuild.co, and you can subscribe, sign up, and they will vet you, make sure you're the right person to use the software. I definitely would think it would have to go through GitHub. I mean, that would have been a wealth of information for it to just learn how to code, because apparently it can write in all languages, which is cool.
Wow.
You could say to it, can you write me a calculator in assembly, please? And I'm sure it'll just... I wonder if it can do it. That'll be cool.
You see, what would be my big question is, how advanced can it actually handle? Right? I mean, as you brought up, what was the example you used of?
SAP.
Yeah, SAP, SAP. So could you tell the system write SAP for me, and is it going to be able to do that with 5 million pages of code? I don't believe it can. I'd have to really be convinced of that. So I think clearly there's going to be a limit as to what it can do. as far as that kind of
exactly.
stuff.
Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, I would think of you'd have to be one of those cases of the blind man and elephants, right? You have to give it, you have to do it in pieces, right? I mean, I'm sure if you tell it to it, hey, I want to write software like SAP, it'll say, why do you want to do it? That'll be top of its mind statistically, so don't bother. You can just do something else. Yeah, I mean, it's taken what 25. I don't know how long SAP has been around. I'm sure it's been around for 30 years at least. Yeah,
Yeah.
um, I'm sure there's many different ways of doing it, right?
Well, now
So
this brings up an interesting question in my mind. Was this thing made as a genuine tool to actually do real work, or is it meant, as the other ones have been, as more of oddities and curiosities and things that really kind of make us all go wow, but is not actually useful
yeah,
yet.
yeah,
I don't
totally.
know. Is it useful yet? Like yeah, it can make a website.
Hmm.
Okay, because as I understand, that's one of the capabilities. You can tell it, give me a website that's like that one. Like you can say, give me something like Twitter, right? But make it do this instead.
Hmm.
And like, will it really be able to do that like for real? Like can I tell it to do something and it will build it, launch it into the cloud, and have an administration council and allow me to now run a business with that thing that it has produced? Okay. Or
Yeah.
does it just make, for no better word, toys, things that are interesting and they're fun and they're curious, but they're not really that useful? And that'll be really interesting to see as to
Well,
what.
Ken, I always think like it would be great to see its development, and you think a good test of its capability will be through its usage, right? So obviously we know that Microsoft has got the exclusive license for using it, right? So it'll be good to see what they're gonna use this technology for. I mean, like you said before, if it was able to use and make the usage of the Azure cloud as simple, you could say to it, write me software and just publish it. I mean, that would be quite amazing, right? I mean,
Yeah. See, that would be, I mean, that could be a useful application to where it's not just thrown out there as a generalized thing, but Microsoft gets it and they make it available for very, specific uses, but still somewhat general. So, or the same thing can be used in many different cases in their platform. And,
yeah,
and
and,
so,
and and how amazing would that be, Ken? Like that, we could use
yeah.
Azure without having to learn the million script files you have to create to do stuff. I mean,
Well, if that happens, Amazon and places like that are going to be, they're going to be going, uh-oh, we need to do something about this.
I think so. I think so. Yet, and definitely people who are watching this, I'd love to know your feeling on this. I know definitely, if you're using some of the other platforms, you have to be an expert in a million things. Forget being generalist. You have to be specialist in majority of things on, say Azure to use it effectively, right? Because it's a very extensive platform with a lot of capability. And I do find that's why you need an army of people to be able to wield it effectively, yeah, not just
Yep.
efficiently, right? So I think definitely I see in that space application of this tech is perfect. If we can,
Well, yeah, because if you can reduce the complexity of using their system and make it to where one guy can basically work for a company and manage their whole presence on Azure, then yeah, that would give more reason why people would want to use that instead
yeah,
of Amazon or the one from China. I forget what it's called.
Alibaba Cloud, yeah,
Alibaba. Yep.
Alibaba, yeah, he's a great guy, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I wonder if Alibaba is going to have access to this as well. We'll see. Time will tell. I think interesting. This also brings up another point that you've mentioned, is how useful it is will be determined by two things, right? The good usages of it and the bad usages, right? Because the bad usages also it's the anti-pattern, right? It's the opposite size of the.
Well, one of the things Microsoft said is they want to be the sole licensor in order to protect it from being misused. So they haven't really told us what kind of misuses they're expecting, right? So
Yeah.
uh, you have any ideas you want to throw out there?
Well, I mean, the two things that come to mind is fishing. I mean, people can take this to the next level and start some pretty interesting fishing things. And topically, obviously, in USA, there's going to be elections. Yeah, and instead of having people doing the fake news or whatever else they do to make people accept untruth.
So you're thinking that maybe this system could,
Mm,
if you can tell it to write software for you, you could easily tell it to write bots for you to go and do things
yeah,
on your behalf that are nefarious or not
yeah,
so good.
yeah. Well, we know one of the people created a blog post. Was some student in university created a blog post using the system and made articles, and some of his articles went viral. I mean, they went viral to a point they got onto some highly acclaimed websites as a top trending article. So
Really?
that's
And it was just an AI generated blog post.
yeah. So I mean, I think that's probably
Fake news.
well, yeah. Technically, it is.
Yeah.
If you think about it, right? So I wonder. That's probably why it's a bit scary. So I mean, it'll be nice from our perspective to find out from the company who created it to maybe educate us what
Yeah.
they believe, the actual cases that they believe it can be misused for. Because I think that would be a great way of maybe educating everyone. These are the cases that you want to avoid. Because the more we know, the more we can spot them. Obviously, we know there was an example recently where people were using this bot on Reddit,
Hmm.
and the beauty of it when you have an intelligent life getting together with non-intelligent or semi-intelligent, they can spot it. So they spotted it quite pretty early on. They've realized, oh, it's a bot doing this, so they managed to you know
Right.
understand it and basically stop being sucked in by the bot, right? Because that's kind of the social engineering where it can be used quite well, I think, if you think about it,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
So I am interested how Microsoft will be doing that. Like you mentioned earlier, that the company that released this software, obviously they have this mission and this vision, and I totally agree with it. That they want to make sure that the software remains transparent and it doesn't fall into the wrong hands, right? And the question, like you mentioned, how is it going to work? Like, how is it? We're giving it to Microsoft, but that's just one party, so you'd have to have some other transparency mechanisms. So obviously we think that it's going to be available to maybe engineers, to some engineers. It'll be available to the science community. Yeah, it'd be interesting to know how else can the general public can get access to it. Because if it's just going to be behind locked doors of certain people, and it's how is it going to be transparent and public? Yeah,
Hmm.
so it'd be good to see that, right? Obviously, the tools like thebuild.co, we're not getting any credit for this, by the way. Would be nice if they sponsor us one day, but that's fine.
That's fine.
Maybe they can help us to get the access to this. If that's obviously a free access, but there's obviously verification of stages you go through where they kind of determine if you're a good candidate for using it. So
Right.
yeah, I'll be keen to watch the space to figure out how it's going to actually be transparent, and we use them because they want to actually make money as well. They did say that they want to. Obviously, they would have spent quite a bit of money as a startup creating this technology, so
Right.
they would have obviously have some sort of shareholders. They would have to, get some of their money back. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on it, and once we get to test it, we'll have more information, which we'll do. So I mean, overall, I think let's maybe sum this up as an amazing kind of development. I think.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's worth watching. And you know, uh, one of the things that we discussed is the difference between synthetic intelligence and artificial intelligence.
hmm,
And I think that this here is a real advancement in the artificial intelligence category.
hmm,
Okay, and um, like any tool, it has great usage potential for specific use cases,
hmm,
right? Um, One of the things that we know for a fact is that it doesn't it doesn't really understand when you have it do things. It doesn't have understanding to a very high degree. Um, and let but here's the more important thing is that the understanding that it does have is buried within the statistical connections that are within the neural network, right? So basically, in fact, why don't we discuss a little bit about the difference between knowledge and understanding? Is that knowing something is like knowing, it's like knowing. Here, I just grabbed this off the table. It's just like
prop. It's a prop, yeah.
It's a prop. It's a little clip, like a closed clip.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know what it is. Okay. And so that would be knowledge. This is a closed clip. But then to understand it means I need to understand what it can do, why it's used, what its purpose is, right? When to use it, when not to use it, what are things that is good for, okay? So all of those independent pieces of knowledge that are connected together by relationships, such as, what can it do? Well, it can open and close, but it can also clip things. It can hold things on lines, close on lines. It can also close bags. I use it for that. You can roll a bag up and put this on there, and it will close it up, right? And so that's what understanding is. Now, my mind has accessibility to my understanding, right? So I can access that, and I can tell you all kinds of things that about my understanding about this thing. Whereas this system, it does have some understanding. Like if you tell it to make a website like this one, it knows what that means. It knows how to carry it out. But as far as the understanding to where you can query it about those things and ask it to like explain to you why it's doing a certain thing, or answer those types of understanding questions to where that, hey, this thing does understand. Like, what's a website for? Well, it allows humans to view content that is, remotely located elsewhere on the internet. Now, if can a system make that conclusion and actually understand that? So that information or that understanding is buried within the statistics of the system. So it has no accessibility to it. At first, we thought maybe it didn't have understanding, but then as we talked, we realized it does. It just can't get to it. Okay,
Yeah,
because it's buried. Okay,
you're totally right, Ken. There's some examples of the system having some understanding. For example, one of the things that people are mentioning in there is you could say to it, I have a piece of wood, and it can actually tell you what can I do with it. So there's a level of understanding. But I think what you're getting at here, correct me if I'm wrong, you're getting that there is a bit of an intricacy. There's a bit of fine kind of definition between understanding something and going to the next level. Like you mentioned a couple of times, which is quite cool. Because you had a peg, right? And you'd say it's a closed peg, and if you're a child, for you closed peg basically means you use it for clothes. Like, it's basically very simplistic, right? To go, okay, it's for clothes. Yeah, I can peg stuff on the clothes. But then as you get a bit older, you'll know, well, you can use it actually to peg whatever you want, papers, anything else. And then, we're obviously going to talk about this more in the next session, which is going to be about this hierarchy of data and wisdom. There's going to be another hour session, I guarantee you, maybe multiple episodes to try to cover this area. But yeah, I think that's understanding much deeper, and it's kind of allows you to connect multiple different kind of pyramids of knowledge, right? And
it points to a more subtle difference between synthetic intelligence and artificial.
Yeah.
And that is that the artificial has intrinsic knowledge and understanding that's embedded within its statistical foundation, but it has no accessibility to it. That's why it cannot answer the questions of the rationale of how it concluded what it concluded. It did not arrive at its answers by making conclusions, because if it can make conclusions, then it can remember those conclusions, and then it has understanding not only of the answer, but it has understanding of how it got to there and how it arrived there. right? Whereas the AI system can't do that, and that's a shortcoming that I think is fairly significant, because as we mentioned before, there's governments that if an AI is going to make a recommendation, then they're going to want to know why. They're going to want to know the rationale behind it, and not just accept the answer, oh, because it says so. Okay,
You are
so
totally right, Ken. I think we've even talked about this a while back. Is that this has been one of the kind of dilemmas for AI systems where they are unable to actually describe the reasoning, or how do
yeah,
they arrive at the actual answer, which is big dilemma, right? Because you want to be able to be consistent, right? So
yep,
especially from an AI system, that's kind of what we expect from it. But this will be good to actually keep on top and maybe ask the developers to say, can you do that? And will it make sense? Because obviously existing AI systems having this dilemma where it just doesn't make sense to us. We just can't understand how it makes these decisions.
yeah.
That's totally great. And yes, everybody tune in for our next session about this, because we can keep going about this. Yeah. Well, talking about shortcomings, obviously, once you watch the internet, there's so much stuff about shortcomings. One of the funny ones that I saw, you might like this, yeah, because we think that maybe they've given it some case law and maybe some sort of country law, but there was one example which is quite nice when they said that they give it an example. I woke up in the morning and I found out that my suit was dirty, but my birthday suit was clean, so I decided to wear that, and it's my best present given by Isabella. And I went to court, and the system completed the sentence. Said, "Yep, you went to the court in your birthday suit, and somebody met you there, and I started the session." Right? It didn't actually know that the birthday suit was actually
Naked.
yeah. So
Yeah.
so that was a funny one.
It's easy to fool a system that doesn't actually
Context.
understand, really understand, right?
Yeah.
Because there you would have to derive birthday suit. Okay, so what were you wearing on your first birthday?
Exactly. Yeah. Or you just even knowing that what it means straight away without even having to deduct anything from it. Just go, yeah, that's a bit. And there's an interesting point. As you teach it these things, is it able to learn from those and add to its knowledge? And I wonder, because they did say that it's learned everything it needs to know. There was that sentence that was mentioned. I'd love to know.
Yeah, I think that sentence needs to be taken with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
That is not,
Yeah, because like if people tricking it, it would be nice to know, is it actually learning from the tricks and understanding, like, oh, okay, okay, right. And does it say, hey, did I get this right? Does it, like, because we talked about it, maybe it has an interactivity concept. Does it actually ask you and say, hey, did I answer your question? Was it right? And does it maybe get feedback from you and then never makes the mistake again? Because if that's the case,
this is an issue, right? Is that AI systems require a training process that you go through, and you present it data sets of lots and lots of data. So I don't know how capable they are, how capable this one is, of incremental improvements to that training. Or does it need to go through a whole new training process in order to improve it? But they seem to say, no, it doesn't. It's already learned everything that it needs to know. But that sentence probably needs to be qualified. Like it's learned everything it needs to know in order to do the things that we've set out for it to do. But clearly, there's always more that any of us can learn. So
totally right, Ken. We're always learning. We're learning new things every single day. And that maybe that's the point of the algorithms. Because whenever everybody refers to this thing, they're saying it's an algorithm, and maybe that's the key to it, because it is an algorithm. It's an algorithm that's set, right? And this has probably been the aspect of the AI currently that we have, is that once you learn something, you make an algorithm, it's packaged, and that's
right.
execute. It's an application get executed. So So it would have to rewrite its own algorithm over time, and that would be interesting, yeah, if it can actually
Yeah.
learn. Because if it can actually learn, and the system is made in a way that it can learn from the interactions and from the testing, is as it's being get
Right.
put through its paces, right? Everyone's testing it and throwing questions at it. If it can redo its algorithm on the fly or just adjust it, that would be definitely a very good kind of system. But we'll get to see.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be so.
No, it doesn't. But
Well,
we will have to let people know once we get our hands on this and actually play around with it. We'll do more reports on this and bring information to you all about this.
well, Ken, I think this is a good point to conclude. I think we've covered quite a lot of stuff. We're keen to hear more from you guys about it. And if you have some questions,
Yep.
please ping us. You can contact us on our LinkedIn, on our page. Yeah, please send us your questions.
And don't forget that if you would like to join the Synthetic Intelligence Association, or you would just like to subscribe to these videos, whatever you do, do not push that join button. That just don't do it. See, I'm using reverse psychology because I know people like to do what they're told not to do. So, yeah.
Yep.
I wasn't supposed to tell you that.
No. And don't press the bell button because it makes a good noise.
No.
We've changed it, so it makes a noise. So don't press it because you don't want to hear. It's a special tune. We got special thing from Google. All right. See you next time, guys. Thank you.
Hey, bye-bye.